the Cleric guide. Now, quite interestingly, the first ever guide I made for Baldur's Gate 3 was about Clerics. It got about, I don't know, about 200 views, and too embarrassed to go back and look at it. Things have changed a lot since then. That was probably like 2 years ago, or a year and a half ago, a long time ago that I made it. So it's time for an update. And a lot of the things I said for Druids especially, and a little bit Rangers, is going to apply to Clerics because their main casting stat is, once again, Wisdom. We'll get to that stats and races later, but first of all, at level 1 we get to make a choice of our subclass, which domain as they're called for Clerics. So we've currently got 3 choices: Life, Light and Trickery. Lots of you should be familiar with Trickery domain Clerics because that's what Shadowheart is, for those of you who take her, and she's one of the first characters we meet. Now before I look at the subclasses, let's actually have a look at what's common between all of them. So we get to choose 3 cantrips. There are only 5 cantrips that Clerics get to choose at level 1 currently. Guidance is great, we've seen most of these before now. Light is good if you've got anyone in your party who doesn't have dark vision. Resistance is, I rarely use it. I've used it like once in combat in the last few months because I had nothing else to do. And it comes up in just 1 or 2 dialogue choices. I probably would pick Sacred Flame as it's the only damaging cantrip we get. And Thaumaturgy, which gives us advantage on intimidation and performance checks. One thing to keep in mind is guidance requires concentration, as does resistance. Basically, I would always personally pick Guidance and Sacred Flame. These are just some of the best cantrips Clerics can get. And then maybe Light. We'll come back to that in a second though. We get these spells. We get Bane, which is concentration. Sadly, when Bane works, it's good, but you can only target up to 3 creatures. I would usually go for Bless, which Life Domain Clerics always have prepared, because Bless always affects your characters, and if an enemy with Bane dies, you don't get to transfer it or anything. And the hope would be with Bless that you keep your characters alive. Command is very powerful. It doesn't show us here, but there are several different choices. It used to just halt them and stop enemies, but now we can make them run away, go prone, drop their weapons, which is quite powerful, make them come towards us as well. Create or Destroy Water has some utility and helps increase damage for lightning and cold spells in the party, which is great. Guiding Bolt, an amazing first level spell, ranged. It's an attack roll, doesn't tell us here, which is a bit annoying, but it is an attack roll, which means you can get advantage on it, a high ground bonus, does a hefty chunk of damage, and gives advantage to the next attack roll against the target. What's not to like? Healing Words, this is your backup healing. As I said for Druids, it's a bonus action to cast, and you can cast it out of range. It doesn't heal a lot, but if someone's gone down, this gets them back up. Inflict Wounds, this is a great melee spell. If you're happy to go into melee, 3d10 necrotic damage. If you can set up a critical hit, which there are several ways, like using Wolves Lunging Bites, or someone is held and under the hold person spell, incapacitated would be the proper term. Automatic critical hits, they're sleeping, boom, this will finish them off. Protection from evil and goods, I usually stay away from this. It requires concentration. The target can't be charmed or frightened, which I often forget about myself, but it's only a single target sadly. It can't be possessed, and when these particular creatures attack the target, those creatures have disadvantage. There are probably better things to be concentrating on unless you've got a particularly powerful foe. Shield of Faith, the nice thing about this is it uses a bonus action, but requires concentration. It increases armor class by 2. This one's alright. The sad part here really is the concentration, because 1, you might lose it, but secondly, there are other things to be concentrating on. But generally, overall, a good choice of spells for Clerics. Not very many bad spells, or spells that I wouldn't want to take. The only one I pretty much never take is Protection from Evil and Good. The others I take at different points and different times. We also do get Cure Wounds. I don't usually have this in combat because it requires an action and doesn't heal very much. And honestly, you can just replace this by throwing a healing potion. The enemies do it. Why shouldn't we? Don't use a spell slot. You can buy loads of healing potions from vendors. They're cheap. Pick them up, buy them, throw them. Outside of combat, this is better because we're not wasting an action and we know we're topping someone up ready for the next battle, but I wouldn't usually use it in combat. Right, we also get Wisdom Saving Throw Proficiency. Nice, that's probably one of the better ones to be honest. It helps stop your character from being controlled. Charisma Saving Throw, it helps against Bane actually, which sometimes gets cast against us. Light Armor, Medium Armor and Shield Proficiency, which is nice, and Simple Weapon Proficiency. Now sadly, short swords and longbows do not come under simple weapons, but we can get crossbows, light crossbows, sorry. And then the other simple, I'm not really very impressed with the other simple weapons if I'm honest, don't really like them that much, but I mean, the point is they're simple. That's kind of, I suppose, it's the point of them. All right, and then let's come to the subclass. So this is for the Life Clerics. We get Heavy Armor Proficiency. Now I have said in previous videos, there aren't any amazing good heavy armors to begin with, but you can get a good enough heavy armor in the Goblin Camp from the Zentrum Trader, which has an armor class of 16, with a shield gives you an armor class of 18. It's good enough. It doesn't need to be better than that for a cleric, really. But this gives you the option of wearing any armor that appears in the game. Since we already have light and medium armor proficiency, we get Disciple of Life. And this is kind of what makes the Life Cleric stand out. When casting a healing spell, the target regains additional hit points equal to 2 plus the spell's level. So if you cast a level 1 spell, they get an extra 3 hit points, 2 plus 1. If they cast a level 3 healing spell, they get 5 extra hit points on top of what's already being healed. This isn't included in the healing calculation here, for example. So actually, if I cast this at level 1, it'll be 1d8 plus 2 plus 3. When we get domain spells, these are spells that are always prepared. For the Life Clerics, that's generally going to be spells that are already in the Cleric spell list, such as, for here, Cure Wounds and Bless. I would say the Life Domain Cleric is almost your stereotypical healer cleric, which, do you know what, in Baldur's Gate 3, in 5th edition, clerics really do not have to heal people. Obviously, the Life Cleric gets bonuses for it, so they're going to go ahead and do it. But your main role isn't necessarily healer. We've got spells, even at level 1, Guiding Bolt and Inflict Wounds, that inflict massive amounts of damage. Like, clerics can do almost anything. The only thing they don't have, really, are arcane spells. And you get to choose a deity before I go to the other subclasses. This affects 2 things, as far as I'm aware. Do correct me if I'm wrong. When we use our Channel Divinity abilities, there's a symbol that appears in the air, and depending on who you pick, you get a different symbol. I'm not going to show you all of them. It's quite a lot of them to go through. But as an example, Baal would be a skull, and any of the other ones I know. Lolth will be a spider, is a spider. Lathander is like a rising sun, for example. I'll show you some of them. Then we come to the Light Domain Cleric. This is my favorite cleric, almost one of my favorite classes and subclasses. One difference, it doesn't tell us, oh, it does tell us down here. We get the light cantrip automatically, so for a light cleric, when you come here, you only have to miss out 1 of these cantrips, and when we get to level 4, I think it is, we get an extra cantrip. So light clerics can actually learn all the current cantrips that clerics can learn. So what do they get? I mean, oh man, light clerics are amazing. They get Warding Flare. Shield yourself with Divine Light. Use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attacker. It will be, it's not part of the reaction system, which is a bit sad. Not a bit, it's very sad. If you've got this toggled on, it will give disadvantage to the first attack against you in a turn. But if you're part of a party, you're not going to get a huge amount of attacks incoming anyway. I mean, I love it. It's free. You get to repeat it every single turn. There's no limit to how many times we can use this. This is really strong. Plus our domain spells, Burning Hands. Nice. We're getting some arcane spells here now. We've got some more damaging spells, AoE spells. And Fairy Fire. This is a great support spell. Love it. And I can't wait until we get to level 5 with these guys. And then the Trickery Domain Cleric. Again, lots of you will be familiar with this because of Shadowheart. We get Charm Person. I'm sad with this. It can help in some dialogues, sure, but when the spell ends, the target might accuse you of charming them. Great. Just like friend, I may as well get someone with the Friend's cantrip instead. And Disguise Self, while I don't personally really use this very much, Disguise Self can be useful. Basically, when you use Disguise Self, you choose a different race to look like. You don't get any abilities from them, but you look like another race. Such as a good example to choose would either be Drow or Githyanki if you want more dialogue options. And turning into a Drow, for example, is really good at helping you get into the Goblin camp. I don't use it myself very much, but I do know that you can get use out of it. I'm happy enough with that. And Blessing of the Trickster grants another creature advantage on stealth checks, requires concentration. If you're sending someone off ahead of the group and they're going to be using stealth, then this is actually really good. Gives them advantage for free. It doesn't require any spell slots or anything. But because we've got vision cones, we don't have to necessarily roll many stealth checks. The worst part about this is the concentration element here. If it didn't require concentration, it'd be a bit better, but I don't find myself using it that much. Right, coming to race, it's very similar to what I said for Druid. Basically, we're looking for races that have wisdom, because wisdom is our spell casting stat, and clerics are full casters. You will be casting spells that affect enemies, that use attack rolls using your ability modifier. So if you want to be better at using your spells, you need a higher wisdom. So when I make clerics, I almost always put it at 16, because maybe not most, let's have a look. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of 10 of their spells depend on the wisdom modifier to improve them. Healing lets you heal more. Oh no, Bless doesn't, sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sorry, 6 of their spells from level 1 depend on the wisdom modifier. Also, with a higher wisdom modifier, you can prepare more spells. For example, I can prepare 3 spells here because it's your level plus your wisdom modifier. If I actually have to pick a different race. if I put my wisdom up to, now it's 16, I can now prepare 4 spells. So you very much benefit from having a high wisdom. Some of you might be happy to start with a wisdom that isn't 16 and at level 4 put it up to 16. That works out okay. You don't have to have 18 at level 4. But obviously, if you want to be a better spellcaster, you do. So depending on what you want to be doing, and whether you're happy to start with a wisdom of 15 or 16 determines which race you'll pick. I'm going to go through the races that do have the higher wisdom. So the Wood Elf, just like with the Druid, the Wood Elf is a good choice because we then get access to the Longbow and Short Sword. And maybe you want to be using a strength. We'll come to strength or dexterity later, but we get extra weapon proficiencies, we get the extra wisdom. Dexterity is also useful, extra proficiencies, and a higher movement speed. Kind of what's not to like there. Human, because we get constitution and wisdom, dexterity and or strength. Gold Dwarf, we get these weapon proficiencies, which is nice, but these are all just so you're aware that your attack bonus and damage depend on your strength modifier. Half Elf can work out very well because we get to pick wisdom and then either constitution, dexterity or strength or whatever you want. Plus we get some benefits of the elf. This time you could use a, high half elf. As I've said before in previous videos, if you pick a high half elf and you want to cantrip, bear in mind that the attacking cantrips depend on your intelligence. Now yes, people might say you could put on the warped headband of intellect, which helps, but your cleric might be taking some damage. Your cleric might be on the front lines, and honestly having a helmet sometimes makes a massive difference because helmets stop critical hits. When a critical hit hits you, you suffer. Anyway, cantrips that don't require or depend on intelligence: Blade Ward, Dancing Lights, Friends, Light, Mage Hand, and Minor Illusion, and Blue Strike. It does say intelligence, but it doesn't actually affect anything here. All of them say intelligence, even if it doesn't really. Although saying that, I haven't actually mentioned it in the past. Your light, you can cast light on enemies, and they do have to make a dexterity saving throw to avoid having it cast on them. So actually having a higher intelligence does let you cast light on enemies more frequently. I've tried it a couple of times and never managed to be successful though. But they have to be holding an item. You can't cast it on like a Hook Horror, for example. They don't hold any items to cast light on. Or maybe you want Drow, because then you get some racial spells, but they depend on charisma for the Drow half elf. And that's it. Right, we've got Dwarf, Gold Dwarf in particular, half elf, human, and Wood Elf. They're the only ones that have, or could have in the case of the half elf, wisdom at character creation. Just bear in mind, if you don't pick one of these races, you won't be able to get a 16 to begin with. And then I'd personally say that you're almost forced to pick wisdom +1 at level 4, plus something else, right? So then we come to ability scores. So we will need a decent wisdom, 14 or 16. If you're going to be crazy, less, but I really wouldn't recommend it. 14 or 16, probably 16. And you really want a decent constitution because you're going to be concentrating on spells. And the higher this is, the more likely you are to pass your constitution saving throws to stop you from losing concentration. And then you've got strength and dexterity left. If you're wearing medium armor, very minimum dexterity of 12. 14 helps. Whether you want any strength depends on what melee weapon you're going to have in your hand. For example, Shadowheart, her strength is I think 10. Can't remember right now, maybe 8. I think Shadowheart, I've forgotten her intelligence and charisma. Something like this. Shadowheart's got some sort of stat distribution like this. With a strength of 10, wielding non-finesse weapons is a really bad idea because you don't get any bonuses from your ability score. So if you've got a dexterity of 14, you're going to be looking for finesse weapons. Now, in the simple weapons, the only finesse weapon is a dagger, which is like the lowest damaging weapon we can have. And on Shadowheart, that's what I do. I give her a dagger because her dexterity is the highest stat that she has for melee attacks. But if you've picked a Wood Elf, you then get Short Sword, which is great. And that's a finesse weapon that depends on your dexterity. And you get a longbow proficiency, but you've already got light crossbow anyway, but we've now got a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, which both depend on dexterity. And as a Wood Elf, we've got dexterity +2. Amazing. But let's say we're a dwarf. Gold Dwarf, we've now got Battle Axe, Hand Axe, Light Hammer, and Warhammer proficiencies. And there are some pretty decent Warhammers. There aren't so many great Battle Axes, Hand Axes. Light Hammer, there's one Light Hammer down in the Underdark near the Mage's Tower that has a Smite spell. But let's say you want to make a dwarf that can use Warhammer as well. In this case, honestly, you're going to want the highest strength possible. Oh, we know. So for a Gold Dwarf, I would suggest even strength and dexterity at 14. Unless you're making a Life Cleric, in which case you could dump dexterity down to 10, even lower, down to 10. One thing I want to point out, it's been pointed out to me, I'm going to say it again at level 4. The Heavily Armoured Feat says it gives you strength +1 and heavy armor proficiency, but currently, in patch 9, if you pick it, after the level up screen, it gives you strength +2. Obviously a bug, we're in patch 9, it will get fixed, but while we have it, you may as well use it. Anyway, so we're looking for wisdom, constitution, in either strength or both strength and dexterity. It's slightly mad, multiple attribute dependent, but you will get away with some 12s. You're not going to be able to make a perfect cleric every time. You will want high everything. As a gold dwarf, actually, I'd probably put constitution and wisdom at 16 and go make a life cleric here. As for your skills, as a cleric, you get to choose one of history, insight, medicine, persuasion, and religion. Not the greatest of choices. You pick what proficiencies you want, keeping in mind you don't want to overlap your background proficiencies too much. I would suggest pick a background that doesn't give you a choice of one of these. Out of these here, persuasion comes up the most. It just from off the top of my head. I don't have data to back that up, to be honest. And then whichever other one you want, they all come up at some point. None of them come up a lot. None of them come up in combat either. Whatever. Let's say insight. Let's stack one of our skills because this is a wisdom skill. And then venture forth. At level 2, we get one more spell slot, and then we get Channel Divinity charges 1. This is very, very similar to the Paladin's Channel Oath charges, except the abilities are a bit different. All clerics get Turn Undead, so present your holy symbol to pray, and turn, which has a very specific meaning. The affected entity, this must be undead, must move away from the creature that turned it. It can't take actions, bonus actions, or reactions other than dash, or to try and escape an effect that prevents movement. So if undead enemies fail their wisdom saving throw, because it is a wisdom saving throw, then they'll literally turn around and run away. And then each different domain, subclass, gets a different other use of their Channel Divinity charge. So for the Life Cleric, we get Preserve Life. It says 3 healing. This ends up being 3 times your level. And I've got to say, now that we've got Oath of the Ancients, this feels very tame, because Oath of the Ancients Channel Oath ability does not just 3 times your level, but your Charisma modifier times your level. It heals twice, so 2 turns in a row, and only uses your bonus action. And when you compare that to this, which is 3 times your level, stuck at 6 for level 2, 9, 12, and 15, and this takes an action. I mean, the one good thing about the Life Cleric's ability here is that its range is 30 feet, rather than 10 feet as it is for Oath of the Ancients. But the fact that this uses an action, before I was like, yeah, this is alright, but now we've got another subclass, or a different class in fact, which has an ability that is just outright better, apart from the range. This feels slightly lacking now, if I'm honest. Anyway, what I'll do is I'll show you each of the different Channel Divinity abilities for the different subclasses, different domains, in combat, rather than just going through it on the level up screen here. Just before I get to combat, I just want to point out I am in the Danked Crypt. I managed to get through the ancient door here and lockpick my way through. And usually in this sarcophagus on the right, oh, not today, maybe it's in one of the others. Sometimes in one of these sarcophagi, there is, here we are, some heavy armor. It's not the best. It's armor class 14, but if you do make a Life Cleric with a low dexterity, this is going to be your first set of heavy armor, I would say. We have Shadowheart here to show us off the Trickery Domain Cleric, and I'm going to, first of all, I'll probably be reloading here because it's an opportune time. We've got Turn Undead, and also, as I mentioned earlier, as you use these Channel Divinity options, this could have been this other one, you get the symbol of the god appearing. The clerics, oh, that's a bit strange that it didn't move around. Anyway, so this here is, I guess, the moon for Shah, and I'll show the other two later. Anyway, Turn Undead. The range is 30 feet. Now, I just want to point out that this skeleton here isn't in line of sight of Shadowheart, and actually isn't going to be affected. So let's try this. Let's turn this on. They all saved on their wisdom saving throw. I'll try it on one of the other clerics. Try again. Ah, 3 of them get turned now. So we'll watch their turn, and then I'll reload and show the other ones, because it takes a short rest to get your Channel Divinity back, so I can't use it multiple times in a fight. So there they are, they've been turned, they are running away. So I've reloaded back to the previous position, and I'm going to show you Shadowheart's Invoke Duplicity first, or the Trickery Domain Clerics Invoke Duplicity first. I've seen people kind of lament this, think this isn't very good, they think it's absolute garbage, and in the right situation it's not always going to be useful, but good thing about this is it doesn't use a spell slot. So what does it do? Summon an illusion. You and your allies receive advantage on attack rolls against the creature if both the attacker and the creature are within 10 feet of the illusion. What people don't like really is that we can't move this around. So you have to create the situation yourself to make sure this is useful. And I think here is a very good time to use it, because I maybe could have put it over there. And we can see that people get the Invoke Duplicity condition. I just do want to point out, it does require concentration. That's another downside to this. I've got advantage because of Invoke Duplicity. I also want to point out, I'll take an opportunity attack for this. Yeah, that's fine. But it does work out with ranged weapons as well. Now I've got disadvantage just because this is a human and she can't see in the dark. But yeah, you can use it. Let's say like Guiding Bolt here, alright? I've got advantage because of Invoke Duplicity. But yes, the illusion is stuck in place. We cannot move it. We can't use a bonus action or anything. Alright, a bit over the top. Didn't really need that. And then since we're here, show off the Light Cleric's unique Channel Divinity option, which is Radiance of the Dawn. At level 2, I mean, almost any level, this is amazing. 30-foot AoE only affects enemies. And even if they pass a, what is it, Constitution saving throw, they still take half damage. And the damage is 2d10 plus your level. It doesn't tell you this, but plus your, what I would assume to be Cleric level, Light Cleric level, by the time we come to multiclassing. And so the more enemies you have around, the better this becomes. Right. Even though this skeleton is within the range, they're not within line of sight, just like with the Turn Undead ability. These all are. Boom. 2 dead. They happen to fail their saving throws. And 1 over half dead.
Where do I go from here?
I've got to say, I do rate the Light Cleric's Channel Divinity option the highest. Just direct damage, AoE, is something that Clerics don't get much of, which is area of effect damage. Whereas now we do. And let's get this Invoke Duplicity. Wow, that's a shame. And I've carried on going just because I can now show you Preserve Life. It's going to tell 6... something that it doesn't say in the tooltip is it will say 6 plus 2. Why is that? The only thing I can assume from that plus 2 will come from this Disciple of Life feature, 2 plus the spell's level. And I guess I can only assume that the game treats Preserve Life as a level 0 healing spell. Plus 2 is nice. It doesn't really make up for the fact that it's an action and all. It's not really that much healing. But, you know, it all helps. And now, continue wailing away. So those are the Channel Divinity options. I find I really want to use Radiance of the Dawn as much as possible. Want to find opportunities to use it. The Trickery Domain one, she lost concentration. If you've got the right sort of situation, it's a good alternative for Bless because advantage is actually quite a strong thing to have. But it is a stationary illusion, so you can't move it around. Oh dear, gone to sleep. And the Life Cleric, I mean, I guess it's not really, by itself isn't too bad, but when we can compare it to another class, considering this is supposed to be a Life Cleric, you're almost stereotypical healer type of Cleric, that its Channel Divinity is worse, much worse I'd say, than the Channel Oath charge. It's a bit disappointing now. One thing I completely forgot to show off for the Light Cleric and didn't even have it on in the previous battle, almost my whole stream at one point, is Warding Flare. So I've kind of described this to you, but let's see it in action. You've got to turn it on. So now during my turn, okay, I'm going to have to jump. But if I jump, you can see an opportunity attack is incoming. And as I jump, you'll see there's a bright flash of light and a nice sound. And then we'll check the attack log, right? Like that. Now I'm free to move. So the enemy had disadvantage because of that attack roll. If I then come to here and move away, this skeleton didn't have disadvantage because Warding Flare only works for 1 attack, and really sadly it's not in our reactions tab. At level 3 we get level 2 spell slots and a whole bunch of new spells being level 2 spells. I'll quickly describe them here and what I think is good and what isn't good. Aid, I usually take this, use it pretty much every long rest. If you've got any summons like Find Familiar or a Beastmaster Ranger, this will also affect them. So this is good. And at level 3, I'll see if I haven't actually shown it in any of my videos yet, but at level 3 it should add 10 hit points to every creature. So it's a strong spell. And as a Life Cleric, we always have this prepared, as well as Lesser Restoration, which I'll get to. Blindness. This feels a little bit expensive for a level 2 spell slot to get blindness to 1 creature, plus they can pass a Constitution saving throw, and lots of enemies have a decent Constitution saving throw. One way to help yourself out is to make the enemy bleed first, using, let's say, Lacerate or spiked bob. Spiked bobs are better really because it's like guaranteed. Then they have disadvantage, or they've got Bane. And if an enemy is blind, they have disadvantage on their attack rolls, and all attack rolls against them have advantage, which is great. The one nice thing about the spell is it doesn't require concentration. So you can blind an enemy and then concentrate on something like Bless if you want it. Enhanced ability is nice to have out of combat, and since we can switch spells around in and out of combat, I would advise that actually outside of combat, switch this in. You don't always want to use it, but there might be an ability check you really want to make happen. And this helps massively because it can give you advantage on ability checks. It does have other perks, which I'll show you later. Hold Person, this is good. Good support spell. It takes people out of combat, at least for a turn usually, and all melee attacks against them, or all attacks within 5 feet of them are an automatic critical hit. What's not to like, really? Lesser Restoration. Don't have many diseases or conditions that this actually affects, plus there is a necklace that we can find in the Druid Grove, which lets us cast it once per, I think, long rest. So I don't usually prepare this. It's nice to have, I suppose, but it doesn't actually come up that often. Prayer of Healing uses a level 2 spell slot to heal all allies within 30 feet. There's a decent chunk of damage. There's a decent chunk of healing. But outside of combat, usually I would take a short rest rather than use this. It's not too bad, but there are other ways of healing, I'd say. I don't usually use my level 2 spell slot for this. Protection from poison, I'd usually prefer to buy and use a potion. That pretty much does the same thing. Nice thing about this is it doesn't require concentration, lasts until long rest, just like a potion of poison resistance, but this costs a level 2 spell slot instead of a potion. I don't often use it. It's good against the spiders in particular because they do lots of poison damage. So there is very useful. But for lots of other combats, it's hard to know which days to cast it, which long rest to cast it. So I don't find myself casting it that often. At these lower levels, it's a bit expensive in terms of using a level 2 spell slot for this. And Silence, this is getting a few more uses than it used to have. In combat, I would say this isn't very useful. Often you just walk outside the radius and you're done. It might put you in a slightly worse position, but the enemy's concentrating on it. And if they're concentrating on Silence, it means they're not concentrating on something else like, I don't know, Bless or Moonbeam or something potentially much more damaging. So I often let enemies continue to concentrate on Silence because I think it's a bit of a waste for them. But this does stop people from making noises from within, so you can cast this around True Soul Gut inside her chambers and then she can't call out for help. I've heard or read people use it in the Goblin camp to break in upstairs with the weakened wall and it doesn't make a noise. And the nice thing on the Cleric spell list is we can just prepare these and unprepare these during the day anyway. But of these level 2 spells, the only one I really have all the time is Hold Person. Others I put in and out, because once you've cast Aid, you can then just not have it in your prepared spell list and switch it out for something else. So the level 2 Cleric spells, while none of them are really very bad, none of them are really amazing either. Well, I mean, Hold Person and Aid are good. Hopefully we do get some of the other level 2 spells from 5th edition, from Dungeons & Dragons, that will help make this level feel a little bit stronger. Otherwise, the only difference between all of the domains is just which spells they always have prepared. And this is where the Light Cleric starts to diverge quite a lot from the other 2 domains. We get Flaming Sphere and Scorching Ray, usually kind of arcane spells, or I suppose Druids do get Flaming Sphere also. But we've got some more direct damaging spells. I love it because this really gives us more options as a Cleric. We can now, if we really want to, stick out a Flaming Sphere, which I've done. I use this. And Scorching Ray if we really want to as well, which the Life Cleric and even the Trickery Domain Cleric don't get spells that damage directly quite so much. And this kind of helps make up for the Cleric's, I guess, weaknesses, things it's lacking. And lastly, the Trickery Domain, get Mirror Image, which is nice. Increases your armor class by quite a lot. I know it's not the same as 5th edition, but it is still a good defensive spell. And Pass Without Trace, it's a nice way to get this. Otherwise you need a Ranger or Druid. And it gives you plus 10 bonus to stealth checks. Personally, I don't really use it that often. I don't need to rely on stealth checks. I can just stay outside of vision cones. But there might be times you really do want to walk through a vision cone, and this plus 10 will absolutely help. So here I want to show you or demonstrate the additional abilities of some of the choices from Enhanced Ability. So for Wisdom, Intelligence and Charisma, we just get advantage on checks for them, but that's fine because a lot of checks are based on these 3. Then we have Cat's Grace, which is creature gains advantage on dexterity checks and only takes half damage from falling. It's okay. I wouldn't ever use Cat's Grace for that falling damage. I'd rather just use Featherfall, even though it's still a spell slot, but it is 0 damage taken. Bull's Strength, its weight limit is doubled. The downside to this is that this requires concentration. If we could cast this without the need of concentration, this would be great, because you could give someone like Lazel, who's already got a high weight limit, double it, and just go pick up everything you want. If those of you who like Barrelmancy, you could just carry more barrels around, but as soon as you lose concentration, that weight limit is lost. And then Bear's Endurance, Gains advantage on constitution checks, which are very rare indeed. And you gain 7 temporary hit points. Not that great, really. Again, it's okay. It's a nice little benefit, but I don't know the last time I've even cast this. I'll do it now for the sake of it. And so the star in here has 7 temporary hit points, break concentration, and he's lost them. These extra abilities from enhance ability are just, they're not that great, really. The main use of it is for advantage on ability checks, I would say. At level 4, like all the other spellcasting classes, we get a level 2 spell slot. We get to pick a new cantrip, which for life and trickery domain clerics means you'll only be left with 1 cantrip you don't know. Now, since this cleric is a human, I probably should have started with light to begin with at level 1, but there we are, it's okay. And then we get a feat or ability score improvement. One obvious and good choice, a little bit boring and such, but is wisdom up to the next even number, which here would be 16 for me. Why? Because we will be able to prepare 1 extra spell, it doesn't say here. Our spell attack modifier goes up by 1. Our spell DC becomes 1 higher, so a bit more difficult for enemies to pass saving throws. And just what's not to like about that? It makes you a better spellcaster. Now, one thing that's got to keep in mind when looking at these other feats now is that at level 5, clerics do not get extra attack. They're not like martial classes. Their cantrips will get stronger. So they become slightly more spellcasters. There might be domains in the future that changes for, and that's fine. But currently in early access, patch 9, that's what I'm going to be focusing on. I would generally avoid any of the feats that improve melee combat. So dual wielder, honestly, just wear shields. We're proficient with shields, usually be the better thing. But if you want, there's nothing wrong with a dual wielding cleric. If you are dual wielding as a cleric, actually I would heavily advise to pick dual wielder, especially if you've got a high strength, because then you can have 2 warhammers, and if you've got proficiency with warhammers, this lady doesn't. But yeah, if you're dual wielding, this is okay. You can then wield any weapon in your offhand, and you get a slight bonus to armor class, so not having a shield isn't so bad. Great weapon master. Again, this is better on a fighter or paladin or ranger who get 2 attacks per turn at level 5. Heavily armored. There's still the bug. See if I can show you actually. It says strength +1, currently gives strength +2, but I've already got, this is the life cleric, I've already got heavy armor proficiency. We don't need that. Now, magic initiates. I would avoid magic initiate cleric because we can't make full use of having 2 cantrips because there are only 5 cleric cantrips currently. And by level 4, you've got 4 of them, or if you're light cleric, all 5 already, and you only get to cast 1 of these per day. But magic initiate druid offers some options. You could pick Shillelagh if you have a lower strength or dexterity compared to, or lower strength really, compared to your wisdom, because then you can wield a quarterstaff and use Shillelagh and start attacking. It's not like the highest damaging thing, but it's nice to have as a cantrip. Thorn Whip is unique to druids. It's nice to have it on a different character, such as a cleric. Poison Spray is not the best cantrip because of the constitution saving throw, but at least it's got a good damage. And since clerics often have a high armor class, being close isn't too much of a problem. Produce Flame if you want your cleric to have some sort of fire damage. It's a nice choice. I'm going to pick these 2 just for the future. And then 1 druid spell. Some of them overlap, which we can see with the yellow boxes here, but lots of them don't. I'm just going to show you, because this is a combination that's been used in 5th edition for many years now, is a life cleric who has good berry, or more like a multi-class cleric and druid. 1 level in life cleric so that your good berries heal more. I'm going to show you whether that works or not, so I'm actually going to stick with magic initiate druid for this cleric. A Thunderwave is a nice choice. Another AoE spell, not another one, an area of effect spell which clerics don't generally have. Obviously light clerics do, but life and trickery domain clerics don't. Be a nice choice, but only once per day. And because we're using magic initiate druid, does depend on your wisdom, but I'm going to leave it like this. These other magic initiates, unless you're wearing, maybe for wizard, I suppose you could have the warped headband of intellect and pick whichever cantrips you want. I've gone over these in other videos and spell lists and things. I'm going to go back to druid. Mobile's okay in almost anyone. We're already moderately armored. Shield master skilled stuff. Maybe weapon master if you've got an odd strength or dexterity which you wish to use. So this life cleric here, maybe give her strength +1, and perhaps I want her to wield a greatsword. Maybe. Just if you've got an odd number for strength or dexterity, it's a possibility. Anyway, I'm going to go back to druid, magic initiate druid for this. Let's make sure I've got the right spells. Okay. So for example, say you wanted Shadowheart to be better with melee weapons and give her heavy armor. Not that I really need to, just want to show you her strength before I start is, let's get rid of this. Her strength is 12, and then go to heavily armored up here. It says strength +1, it says 13, fine. But actually it's gone up to 14. Okay, thank you. And then maybe I could give her some heavy armor. It kind of rounds her out, 14, 14, 14, 16. It's not really necessarily the best thing, but just want to show you that the bug is currently here. So what I wanted to show you is this. All right, good berry. I can't use a spell slot for it. All right, we got these good berries. I'm gonna eat it. We get this lovely combination of 1d4. Then, since it's a level 1 spell, 2 + 1 is 3. This didn't used to work before patch 9. I'm sure it didn't. So now this is a... Ooh. That's interesting. We've already picked up some good berries from the Goblin Camp. Not the Goblin Camp, from the Druid Grove, which weren't created by a spell. But now we have this lovely combination of a Life Cleric and good berry. So now, obviously these are gonna... Not the best idea, but... Now you create 4 good berries, which will which will heal 1d4 plus 2 hit points. It's just not a massive amount, but it's significantly better than using Cure Wounds or Healing Word for outside of combat. Obviously, in combat, you will probably be using Healing Word to get people off the ground. And Healing Word here does 1d4 plus 3 healing. Good berries is 1d4 plus 2 4 times. So 4d4 plus 8, essentially. So it's a very good use of your Magic Initiate spell choice. However, just a few seconds later, I decided just to test this out. I've transferred 2 good berries to like to have the 3rd here. He doesn't get the +2, which is really sad. So it's just the Life Cleric, seemingly, who gets the extra +2 from good berries. Not quite as good as I just said, but it's okay. It's okay. At least she can keep herself alive and well more than anyone else. Okay, I nearly forgot to add this in. We need to look at the Tadpole power for the Cleric now. Hopefully I can read this correctly this time, not like in the Druid video. So Survival Instinct. Infuse a creature with Psionic Force. If it reaches 0 hit points, it heals instead of falling unconscious. And we can see here the healing is 3d4, which isn't affected by anything about the character. It uses a bonus action on a 60-foot range, which is nice, because it means you don't need to be standing next to an ally. So it must be an ally, and I've tried to set up Gale here so that he does actually go down on the next turn. There we are, so Gale now has this condition. So it doesn't tell us ahead of time how long it's going to last, but here it says 3 turns, so it'll be this turn and then 2 more. So I'm just going to end Gale's turn. I'm not going to get him to do anything. Hopefully Gruko here will take the bait. There we are. So let's have a look. He is not down. Let's open up this. So yeah, Gruko downed Gale. Don't know if that's some sort of euphemism. Gale was healed for 6 hit points. And he lost the condition Survival Instincts. Now he doesn't have it anymore. And I can't use the condition again until a short rest is finished on Shadowheart's turn. So now I really do need to get Gale out of there. This is kind of useful. This is a preemptive heal, but you can only get the heal when someone's going down. But if someone's going to go down, and you can predict it ahead of time, actually, really quite useful. Because it's only a bonus action, it saves a spell slot. Saves you on your next turn, and maybe you can use Healing Word next turn. Anyway. And bonus points for any of you who know which of my save games this is from. I've got Lae'zel as an Eldritch Knight. And now we come to level 5. More hit points, level 3 spell slots, 2 of them. Destroy Undead gets an upgrade. When you successfully turn an undead creature, it also takes 4d6 radiant damage. That's just a nice little thing to add. There aren't very many undead creatures by the time we get this, but it will be useful perhaps later, because I'm not going to leave the dank crypt until level 5, or the basement underneath the blighted village. I'm not going to leave that until level 5, where we get most of the undead. But perhaps in the future will be better. There were some undead raised by the Duergar, for example, actually, so it's not completely useless. And then we get the level 3 spells. I fairly recently did a tier list for these spells. I'm just going to tell you the ones I think are the most useful and best. Animate Dead is good. Bestow Curse can be okay. Daylight is good against Duergar, and Drow gives them disadvantage on their attack rolls. Glyph of Warding is amazing. Mass Healing Word, perhaps on a Life Cleric with certain items, this can be good. Protect, no. Now, Revivify, I wouldn't usually have this prepared, but it's kind of nice to have this prepared. Obviously, we do have the Revivification Scrolls, and we can dissipate Withers, but perhaps you're in a combat, you've run out of scrolls, but you've got your Life Cleric, who has a level 3 spell slot, and they can cast this. Spirit Guardians, top-notch spell. We also have Beacon of Hope always prepared as a Life Cleric. I suppose in some situations this is okay. It's fine to have this as a spell always prepared, because then we don't have to worry about preparing it ourselves. Gives advantage on wisdom saving throws and death saving throws, which is good, because spells that force wisdom saving throws are often very damaging in terms of they can take control of your character or make them run away in fear or something like that. And then regain maximum hit points when healed. That includes potions. That's kind of useful if everyone around is kind of dying. Beacon of Hope is a nice backup. And it's kind of nice here because we don't have to waste the prepared spell to have it. So then we come to the hard choice actually of what spells do we prepare, because we can only have if I had Wisdom 18, 9 spells. For me, Healing Word is a must. Guiding Bolt and or Inflict Wounds personally. We want some damaging spells from our Cleric also. Outside of combat, I would have Enhance Ability. Inside combat, maybe Hold Person. Definitely Glyph of Warding and Spirit Guidance. They're absolutely amazing spells. And then kind of one spell, I mean, Animate Dead you don't have to use in combat. In fact, don't even know if you can. Yeah, you can't even use it while in combat. So outside of combat, have Animate Deads, have Enhanced Ability. Daylight you can cast and then take off. It's non-concentration as well, which is nice. Maybe Bestow Curse, or as a Life Cleric, perhaps Mass Healing Word. Oh, there's one more here. Whoops, kind of missed that. Not that there's necessarily lots of things wrong with these other spells. This would just be on my personal pick. If I want to pick some spells and not think about it. Maybe Blindness. We're starting to have just enough prepared spells that we can have some of the... Oh, Command, sorry. Take all that back. We want Command. Show you why later. Let's have a look at the Light Burst Cleric here, because we get the same sort of things. We get our always prepared spells of Daylight and Fireball, the answer to life's problems. Does what it does for a wizard. Obviously, though, your allies will get damaged by this. It's not like having an Evocation Wizard, but it's just great. I don't even have to waste a prepared spell for this. And then we've got the same choices here. And lastly, Trickery Domain Cleric. We get Bestow Curse and Fear. Fear is really good. Sadly, it requires concentration, but when enemies fail their saving throws, they drop their weapon and they run away, and you can keep on hitting them and they keep running away. It takes them out of combat, essentially, and you pick up their weapon, assuming they're a melee character. Obviously, if it's a spellcaster, the dropping the weapon isn't so important or anything. It's an area of effect as well. I think quite a big cone. So from here, camera's going wonky. Right, that there is a very large cone for something that's melee ranged anyway. If I had Thunderwave, for example, we've just got that. What's the actual range on it? Right, 17 feet for Thunderwave, 30-foot range. That's what makes it great. So sadly, Shillelagh doesn't actually get an upgrade in damage at level 5. So his usefulness past level 4-ish starts to wane a bit, because Sacred Flame starts doing 2d8 damage, Thorn Whip's 2d6, plus the effect of moving someone. Now, something I wanted to show. Yeah, right. A level 3 aid. Now, obviously, we've only got 2 level 3 spell slots currently. But aid scales, I'd say, relatively well, considering we can get lots of people inside here. And you got to think about this. It's not just 10 extra hit points, right? It's 10 extra hit points per character, or per anyone inside the radius. So in just the right place. Supposedly get everyone. So it's not actually just 10 extra hit points. It is here an extra 1 for laser, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 80 hit points more. Obviously, I can't have everyone in the party at the same point, but at the same time. But the point kind of still stands, even with 4 characters in the party at any one time. That's an extra 40 hit points spread throughout the party. That's effectively another character worth of hit points before everyone dies. Other spells kind of worthwhile upcasting. Hold Person is now 2 targets. This is what I was going to talk about with Hold Person. Hold Person is an extra target per spell level. So at level 3, let's see if I can find a combat actually. At level 3, let's just say drop, could get 3 enemies to drop their weapons. Go pick them up. Especially you're going to try and target melee characters so that they all drop their weapons. You go pick them up and they're disarmed. They're just going to be hitting you for like 4 damage or something. Really not that scary. The healing spells heal an extra die of hit points. The damaging spells have 1 extra die of damage usually. Bless gets an extra target for every spell level. Ooh, lesser restoration. Yeah, it doesn't cast additional benefits. Let's see. Create or destroy water gets you a much larger area. By level 3, we got this, I'd say, very large area. But again, you've got to bear in mind you're using a level 3 spell slot, and you've only got 2 in a long rest. So while some of these effects are great, you've got to be careful. Nothing for extra for Shield of Faith. Bane will be an extra target. Blindness will let you pick an extra target, but again, it's level 3 spell slot by that point. Enhanced abilities, 2 targets. Silence, I wouldn't imagine is anything extra. No. Rare Feeling should be an extra, an extra die of healing. Protection from poison. Nothing extra. Don't even get to target 2 people. Bit sad. So yeah, some of the spells have additional benefits at level 3, but not every single spell does. The reason some spells you can still cast at a higher level, all of them at a higher level, is if you've run out of level 1 and level 2 spell slots, you can still use a level 3 spell slot if you want to cast Shield of Faith. It's not necessarily a good idea, but you can do it. Right, next up will be some items to look out for. So items to look out for Clerics. This is a very general sort of set of items. Actually, here I've made a small mistake really with the armor. But anyway, starting with Walpuria's Crown, which comes from the Grove and Korga. When healing another, the wearer regains 1d6 hit points, which is nice. I'm going to show you what happens when we heal someone once I've gone through all the items. Slippery Chain Shirt comes down from the Kuatoa. Around the back of the cave is kind of a slightly hidden chest. When the wearer heals a creature, it automatically disengages and won't trigger opportunity attacks. I've picked here Amulet of Selûne's Chosen. There aren't any amazing necklaces for Clerics because lots, or some of the necklaces we get kind of do Cleric things, such as give us less restoration, but as a Life Cleric here, we've always got it prepared anyway. So why this? This is just healing, I'd say outside of combat, because allies can be turned to sleep if they fail a Constitution saving throw. Sadly, this doesn't benefit from the Life Cleric's ability. We just get +5, no +5, +2 or something like that. Outrider's Pride, when you heal another creature, it gains resistance for a turn. Nothing not to like about that. Now, the Ring of Restorative Gravity, I don't really rate this particularly highly. When the wearer heals another creature, it is pulled 7 feet towards them. I guess that could take someone out of opportunity attack range. I really don't normally pick this up. I haven't found any good use out of it, because if you use it on an enemy while you're healing them, it's unlikely that it's going to help that much. The Whispering Promise is great. When the wearer heals a creature, it also basically gets blessed for a turn. Boots of Aid and Comfort, when you heal someone, they get 3 temporary hit points. Not loads, but every time you heal, it gets replenished. And the Staff of Arcane Blessing, well, it gives us a particular type of bless, but basically blessed with steroids. This is not a good description. Right, bless grants an additional 1d4 to saving throws and weapon attack rolls. Fine, that's just telling us what bless does. What Mistress Blessing then does says, and this and here is what's confusing, and an additional 2d4 to spell attack rolls. Or what is this has been confused for in the past is 1d4 plus 2d4 equals an extra 3d4 bonus. It's not like that. What it really means is when you use Mistress Blessing, you get an extra 1d4 to saving throws and weapon attack rolls. And if someone uses a spell attack roll, that 1d4 is actually a 2d4. Let's show you. So I've got it here. Don't make sure you don't get it confused with your bless spell if you've already got it prepared. You want to use this one. Just cast it here. So we can see Mistress Blessing and Bless. So really this is what it kind of is wanting to say. Mistress Blessing, additional 1d4 to saving throws and weapon attack rolls, and additional 2d4 to spell attack rolls. So if I try and cast Guiding Bolt, which is through, never mind. This is Bless and Mistress Blessing. Sorry, Raven. Let's have a look here. We get Bless, 1d4, and then Mistress Blessing, an extra 1d4. The description isn't great, but it's still a very good version of Bless. And now, even better, in patch 9, is that staves are versatile. So we can have a quarterstaff in one hand and a shield. So chainmail can be bought from inside the Goblin camp, from the Zentrum trader, Roa Moonglow. And now we've got a good armor class of 18. Some basic heavy armor, basic shields. All of a sudden, armor class 18. Now, I picked up one other piece of armor here. Spider Silk armor. If you've got a cleric with a good dexterity, I would say at least 16. So your armor class would be 17 in total if they're wearing a shield. Why might you want to use this? Because you get advantage on Constitution saving throws, and there are lots of spells that require concentration. One other set of boots, apart from the Boots of Aid and Comfort, Boots of Striding. This is a new item for patch 9. When you cast a spell that requires concentration, you gain momentum. And while you're concentrating, you cannot be pushed or knocked prone. If you're in Greece, you can still fall prone. This isn't complete immunity to prone, so the description doesn't really describe what it does. Let's just cast what requires concentration. Flaming Sphere. And anyway, we got momentum. Momentum gives us an extra 10 feet of movement speed. It's just for one turn. So let's just allow it to go to the next turn. And I haven't got momentum, so it's literally just for one turn we get momentum. It's not that great, to be honest. One turn of momentum. And it's not like we get advantage on Constitution saving throws. We just can't be pushed or knocked prone. So if I try to get Life Tap to shove... Oh, well, looks like this is not actually going to work. Yeah. I can't get shoved. Like, these boots actually aren't as good as they are described as. They just don't quite do what they're supposed to, sadly. Otherwise, for armor, We've got access to medium armor, so Githyanki Halfplate's always going to be a great choice to put our armor class high, and with the shield up to 19. So your clerics are probably going to be quite well armored, which is nice. Alright, it's time to go fight some stuff. Okay, I'm going to start off with something hopefully fairly obvious. Lots of weak enemies here together. Out comes the answer to our problems. And that's the light cleric, okay? That's all you need to know about light clerics. From now on, they get fireball. Now say you're not a light cleric and you don't have fireball. You do have Glyph of Warding, which we can cast in combat. So we could probably hit 4 of them with this, which should be quite a nice idea. One thing I just want to show you, I probably would use Glyph of Warding instead of... where has it gone? Drop here. But we can try and command 3 of them. 2 of them do. Got their arms, and now Bual's arms are out on display. So let's go get it, shall we? Well, it says not enough movement, we'll jump in there. Okay, I'm risking that there, but they've got 2 Kuatoa who can't actually hurt us. Now back to the Light Cleric. We could use the amazing Radiance of the Dawn, but I actually want to show you a different spell. So I'm just going to actually heal Life Tab. She's dying over there. Don't forget, you can always throw healing potions. Some of you might not like it, but the enemy do it. I'm going to do it. That was the Warding Flare from the Light Cleric there. So I just wanted to show you Fear one more time. It was 30-foot radius, so we're easily going to see the ones over there. Now for some reason, Bual here is invisible to me. Some sort of bug. Hopefully not going to get an opportunity attack. Find Fear. Look at that. 4 weapons dropped. 4 enemies running away. And now we've got this sickle, which does 2d4 plus 2 instead of 1d4 plus 2, the strongest sickle out there. So fearful, fearful, not fearful, but I do want to go and pick up the sickle. Because they're feared, they're not actually going to attack me with the opportunity attacks. I am concentrating. Hopefully don't lose concentration. Even if I do, I've taken away their weapons at least. So fearful running away. Sadly, the life cleric here was prone, so she didn't get to have an opportunity attack, which would have been nice. And since she's the life cleric, she's hurting. There was that ring of restorative gravity. Healing a lot of hit points for everyone. Temporary hit points all round. Bless for those that were inside the area there. Sadly, Gale wasn't. So even Bual is fearful, which is nice. Then it's the light cleric's turn. It's time to break this out. Who needs fireball when you can do that once per combat? Almost for free. Sadly, didn't actually kill anyone, but lots of them are very dead now. Some follow-up turns for those opportunity attacks. Taking 2 of them out. Not taking any damage here. Then we come to Shadowheart again. Just keep in mind, the fear spell requires concentration, so don't go casting Bless or Invoke Duplicity right now. Just want to be attacking, so maybe a Guiding Bolt. Feels a bit of a waste to use Guiding Bolt, since it's a level 1 spell slot. At level 5, this isn't the hardest of battles. The only, I guess, difficult part is just the number of enemies here. They're all relatively weak. They walked out of line of sight of Shadowheart, and they had another saving throw there. One thing we can do with Glyph of Warding, detonation. See if we can knock these 2. I can't see exactly where they're going to get knocked back. I think there might be okay. They passed their saving throws. Could have been knocked back into the abyss. So we're not going to have any problems here. I'm not even using Gale, who could have potentially thrown his own fireball and ended everything anyway. So yeah, the main downside is melee becomes not as good at level 5 because we're only going to get 1 attack, so 1d6 plus 3 damage, or we can try Sacred Flame for 2d8 damage and finish him off like that. Another good choice here could have been Fairy Fire from the Light Cleric, just to light everyone up. Anyway, I think you see the point here. We've got some decent spells, we've got some area of effect spells, we've got some damaging spells, we've got some support spells. It's all really good. And I'm gonna have another fight. This time I might try and take on the Bullet. I haven't actually fought the Bullet yet. One thing I forgot to show you is Spirit Guardians would have been amazing in this fight as well. Just gonna see if I can do this. Ha, so concentration broken, but I actually still took damage before concentration went down. Interesting. So here in this situation, we've now got a single strong enemy, the Predator of the Dark, the Bulette. And we've got a few choices. I want to point out, whole person doesn't work because the Bulette isn't a humanoid. It'd be great if it was, but it doesn't work. So we could potentially bestow Curse to try and do two things. Try and have a chance of the Bulette to skip its turn with a 70% chance. Or, since I've got other Clerics around, maybe Wisdom disadvantage. Now that does require concentration. It is a little bit expensive, but it does now mean I can command just halt. 88% chance to work. And I've got another Cleric here. Have I got any other wisdom spells? Let's have a look. Another command there. I don't care any, but like command is a very strong spell. Sadly, Constitution saving throw is very high for the Bulette, so I'm not going to use that. And perhaps I want to use Mistress Blessing. The hope is that the Bulette doesn't move because it is command halted. Won't do anything. I don't think I've got Gale with any wisdom saving throw spells here, so that's not going to be beneficial for him. So he's just going to start damaging this thing. And now, if we want to be doubly mean, bestow Curse. Where's it gone? It's changed position. Dread. Ooh, not enough movement. We'll get a bit closer. Ah, right. It can't be cursed with multiple things at the same time. Didn't actually realise that. Ow. Anyway, since this guy's quite hard, well, target's obscured. We've got light. I know I've got light up. Perhaps just level 1 will do. Oh, come on. I shouldn't still be obscured right here. I'm just interested to see... threatened. I've already had an attack of opportunity against me, so I can just walk back. No problem. Okay, so it didn't skip its turn. Must have passed its saving throw. And now we're in trouble! Oh no! But that's what we've got the Life Cleric for. Sadly, this takes an action. Let's get everyone back up with a half-decent number of hit points. And maybe just to really heal everyone up to full. There we are. Sadly, it does bring everyone together, which is a downside for the Bulette here. So I'm going to try Command Halt. Command Halt is quite powerful. It won't do anything on its turn. Oh, I can still run away even though it's halted. Now, that wasn't necessarily the best fight that I've ever had against a Bulette or anything, but it's good to know that Bestow Curse, we can't have multiple curses on the same creature. It's a little bit sad, but Bestow Curse is good against a single enemy, I would say. Another half-decent choice there would have been to have Curse the Constitution and then use Blindness, so everyone has advantage against it. Now, bear in mind, you're very unlikely to have 3 Clerics in your party. Obviously, you can choose to, and if you want to, just make sure you open up multiple copies of the game, and then you can create a multiplayer game and join your own LAN game, or I guess internet game. And you could pick different spells. Oh, Wisdom, I could have had him Tasha's Hideous Laughter if the intelligence of the Bulette was 5 or more. I'm not sure it is. Hopefully you get my point. We can debuff enemies very well as a Cleric. Also, throughout the whole fight, I don't know if you noticed, I've got a zombie. I had a zombie. I used Animate Dead. It was great from one of the Kuatoa. Apparently zombies can't jump. It can't get over this gap, and no one here is strong enough to throw it over, which is quite sad. So I couldn't use my zombie in that fight. Alright, one more battle. This time I want to show you Invoke Duplicity again. So we know these guys are going to come towards us. We don't want to put it too close to us, too far to them. It looks like we might actually meet somewhere near the middle. So I'm going to try and put this down somewhere near the middle. Maybe just hide out the way so we don't lose concentration. Hey, nice. Very lucky there. It's going to make this fight quite a lot easier now. It's not quite come close enough, sadly. So Gale's going to take a few hits. Now, I have got Gale with Fireball here, which could easily do a lot of damage, as could the Light Cleric. But again, just want to, I guess, show off how cool the Light Cleric is with this Invoke Duplicity. Sorry, Deep Rotho. They were going to attack me anyway. These guys, do you know what? Not very damaged, granted. Perhaps I'm feeling lucky. I don't even need to feel lucky for this because of Invoke Duplicity. Level 1, Necrotic Touch, Inflict Wounds. There we are, had advantage. And maybe I don't want to use up a spell slot for Gale. Ooh, I don't know if I'm going to get close enough. Yeah, I'm not going to get close enough for Invoke Duplicity. Pretty sad. Now here's an Evocation Wizard, so I could just, put that Fireball down. keeping Shadowheart out the way so she doesn't lose concentration on Invoke Duplicity. Run this way, and the great thing about command is it doesn't require concentration. So it says that it do here, which is basically wrong. And this guy is annoying. He's got lots of ranged attacks. Maybe, oh, not level 2. Maybe just want to get him to run away. I don't need to run up to him for that. Or perhaps, actually, I'll just command him to approach. Or in fact, let's try this approach with both. Because now, he's not going to do very much. It's just going to be safe. And he's going to provoke opportunity attacks. So even though Gale's pretty bad with his melee weapon, I should just get in there. Don't need to worry about using spell slots right now. He's on the low number of hit points. And off we go. We're all getting our opportunity attacks. Even though we're clerics, we're not like great at melee. With the combination here, we're doing fairly well because of Invoke Duplicity as well. This guy is now going to have his turn. I don't need to worry too much. He might hurt someone, but point is it's now 4 against 1. He doesn't stand much of a chance. We try and take revenge on Shadowheart there. Then we're going to be fine. Don't even need to use spell slots probably. Ooh, nice amount of damage there. And again, because our cantrips now do 2 to 16 damage, 2d8, probably best to try them. Although with this here,
out of sight, out of mind.
He's only got 1 hit point. Easy enough. Obviously, I was very lucky at the beginning that the Deep Rotate knocked one off. But I had Glyph of Warding ready. I had Spirit Guardians ready. Clerics can deal with almost any situation. It makes them absolutely amazing, I think. So let me know what your favourite cleric is. I did run a poll on the live stream a while ago, and the Light Cleric came out on top. Quite convincingly, I'd say, around, I think it was 58% or so, something like that. Let me know what you do with your clerics, what items you choose, what you do at level 4, and what races you choose. I do want to say thank you to members who signed up recently. It really does help support the channel. If you're interested, please see the description below, which also has a link to Discord. Thank you very much for coming this far. Please do consider subscribing, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.